am so incredibly excited to have Tina Call on the podcast today. She is the team leader, founder of Call Group with eXp Realty. She is a rock star all over social media. So thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Yeah, so why don't you start off by telling everybody that doesn't know you? I know a lot of people do, but the people that do not know you, a little bit about yourself and yourself at eXp and things like that.
Oh, yeah. I have been in the business 24 years. I always say I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I grew up in a household where I watched my immigrant father, who could hardly speak English, start and fail many businesses. But the one thing that I took away was action takers that never give up, are money makers. And so built with, passion and that hard work ethic, I just failed my way through real estate is kind of how I explain it. And with a lot of failures comes some success. And so, I started as a solo agent. I built a business to have now a team, and I'm out of physical production. We have 44 agents. They'll sell 1,000 homes this year. And then I do have a national and international team at our firm, eXp, which allows me to help set vision and lead agents into a more productive and fruitful environment where they can learn faster, have a seat at different tables, have coaching and leadership. And we've just been having a lot of fun the last 5 years. So here I am today, all, just a mixture of different failures and successes. And hopefully some of my stories can help others, not do what I did.
Absolutely. I'm the same. I absolutely love that. So you've been at eXp 5 years now.
I have. Yep.
And you're 40 agents or 44. How many agents did you say you have?
Oh, on my physical call group team, which is here in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have 44 agents. On my eXp team, which is national, we have 1,500 agents, and we're growing by like 50 agents a month, which is, yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. So yeah, I'm really excited to help you in that eXp growth. And what we're going to talk about today is the Nar Settlement, because obviously that's a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's actually confused. Real estate agents, sellers, buyers, no one really knows what's going on. So I just wanted to get first your take on the settlement, what you think about everything, what you're kind of advising your team. And then what I want to do is talk a little bit more specifically about the buyer agents and the listing agents.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying, I think sometimes when there is massive change, number one, there's a lot of fear around change. People don't love change. So I think, to be honest, in a few years, couple years, we're all going to laugh at this just like we did, washing our fruits and vegetables during COVID when we were all thinking we were going to die because the orange was going to kill us. And so I think it's sort of going to be, something to that effect. When you think about real estate, and again, 24 years in the business, there's always been an opportunity for a seller to not offer compensation and sell their home for sale by owner or with a discounted commission-based brokerage. And there's always been an opportunity for a buyer to lead themselves, hire an attorney or hire a discount broker and kind of DIY it. That has always been available to the consumers. However, the market has spoken and consumers have spoken, and they have said that 85% of consumers want an advocate when they're buying a home, and 85 to 90% of consumers want a listing agent to market and sell and negotiate for them. Therefore, we have always had the compensation structure in place. What's changed a little bit, and you might hear it in the news, and I think that's where the narratives come in, because people could read the same sentence and have 14 different iterations of what that sentence means. eXp's founder and CEO were very forward thinking in that change. And they kind of said, hey, we've got to lead our people somewhere and let's take this stance. And their stance was, we don't believe in broker to broker compensation. Now, what everyone took that as is, oh my God, they're not going to pay buyer agents, which is false. What they said is, we're going to decouple, because obviously the DOJ and the magnifying glass is on the fact that I, as a listing agent, if I list your home, Danielle, I'm saying, hey, my fee is X, and I'm going to take out of X and offer Y to the buyer agent. I am going to negotiate for that buyer agent what I believe they should get paid. And so what EXP wants is they want the seller to pay me direct, EXP Realty, and they want the seller to then decide with their advisor what the best compensation would be for the buyer broker, and then offer that compensation or let the buyer broker determine what their compensation is. So I think we're actually seeing some really great results where the sellers are enjoying that conversation, the education, and the delivery of, oh, well, I get why I'm paying you and what your cost is. And I get the strategic, solution of why I should, pay a buyer agent, and I should employ the buyer agent pool of, of our market to come and help, incentivize them to sell this home. So it's just been a little bit of a learning tweak, but I don't think it's as big as everyone's blowing it out to be, or blowing it up to be.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't realize, I mean, I've been in real estate and mortgage since 2001, and Dodd-Frank, back in 2010, it completely changed the way we did things as mortgage brokers and got paid in our compensation and what we had to disclose. And also, the way we did real estate as well. So, everybody forgot about that. And what's funny is anyone that came into real estate after that time, let's just say even not like right after, but a couple of years after, they don't know any different. And the same is going to be here. We just have to get through this time, but eventually it's going to be that we don't, know any different. And the thing is, in my personal opinion, is that it's actually better because a buyer agent, we always talk about, how buyers are liars, or buyers will go to, if they're working with you, they'll go and cheat on you or work with somebody else. Well, now they're kind of having to commit, and make that commitment. And I think where the real estate agents that can really learn how to explain the process and be confident in what they're saying are the ones that it's not going to be an issue, right?
Right.
So if we're talking about buyer agents, what are some of the ways, and let's just talk about a buyer agent that might be out of brokerage that doesn't get a lot of support. I'm seeing that a lot right now. A lot of people are making moves because they don't get the support, they don't have the training, they don't have the skills. And what's going to happen is they're either going to try and find a new brokerage or they're going to get out of the business because they just don't know how to handle this. So let's talk to those agents that might not have that support. What are some of the best practices, maybe tips, techniques, scripts that you think they should be or could be using around, in speaking with a buyer?
So I think there's a lot of things to unpack here. So the first thing is, I think overnight, when that ruling came into effect, buyer agents became listing agents overnight. And I think that, when you think about our industry, you either identified as a buyer agent, listing agent. It seems like, well, I do listings or I do buyers, and some both. But I always felt like people gravitated towards what made them more comfortable. So if you were in a more comfortable buyer role, you were probably, very passionate about, showing houses and educating. You were more patient because buyers take a lot more time. And you probably didn't want to put yourself in a position where you felt like a salesperson. That's what I'm seeing, the self-identification of, I'm not in sales. Actually, you are. And so what I think happened overnight is buyers agents all of a sudden had to create their presentation that would be a little bit different. And they're going to have to learn their skills, and they're going to have to understand that these are the decisions the buyer has to make. And yes, you're going to have to set a rate, or before the rate was set for you. Oh, that they're offering 2%, 3%, 4%. Okay, I guess that's what I'm making. Versus, no, my rate is this. And Danielle, we have one of three options. If we go to a house and we see that they're not offering compensation, then my compensation is X, and you get to decide for this particular house, do you want to pay my compensation? Or we will try to get it from the seller. Even if they don't offer compensation, that's okay. We will write it into the deal. I will negotiate that for you. Or you may decide that this is not the house for you and we have to move on. If you absolutely can't afford to pay the commission, we will find the house that is offering that compensation. I will never let my compensation get in the way. However, and agents will say that, well, once your compensation gets in the way, then you've lost your way. Yes. However, I've never listed a house for free. I've never said to a seller, I will never let my commission get in the way, Mr. Seller. I will list this property for free. I've never met one agent to list a property for free. Therefore, you are not going to represent buyers for free. I've never met a doctor or an attorney or a plumber that has done a service for free. Now, have we given discounts? Sure. Have we made things right because we made a mistake and given up a portion of our compensation? Absolutely. But nobody works for free. Not teachers, not doctors, not lawyers, and not real estate agents. And so I think that it's just that belief in, this is my process. May I share it with you? We're going to go to more of a listing-based process where listing agents usually were interviewed, 1, 2, 3 agents. Buyers now, because if buyers are going to pay, they're going to pay attention. And they're going to say, man, should I use Danielle, Tina, or Joe? And let me interview all 3 of them and see what they bring to the table. And the agent that's going to win, Danielle, is the one that understands that their job is to figure out what the problem is for the buyer, or even help the buyer figure out what their problem is, because some buyers don't even know what their problem is. Before you can sell yourself and your service, you have to understand what the problem is and then see if your service solves that problem. Once the buyer believes that your service, your expertise solves their problem, then the relationship is going to be, embedded and agreements are going to be made.
Absolutely. And I think having that solid buyer presentation that most of the buyer agents never had before is key. And sitting down with them and saying, this is what every buyer agent does, and this is what I do differently for you. Exactly. Getting what is your value? What do you bring to the table? What do you do differently? And really kind of, figure that out within yourself and having a solid presentation and explaining that. And then also explaining, what's funny is I teach a lot of classes, and I teach a buyer class and a listing class. And I always talk to them about the fact that they don't have, number one, a solid buyer presentation. Nobody has ever asked for a buyer broker agreement. And the funny thing is that when they would say buyers are liars or anything like that, I would explain to them it's not that. The thing is that they don't know how you really get paid because you've never had that conversation. So if you're working with a buyer and they go to a builder and don't mention that you have been showing them property for the past, 12 months, well, that's because you never had that conversation with them to explain to them, when you go to a builder, this is what you have to say. If you go to an open house, this is what you have to say. Here's a stack of my cards. Let them know that you're working with me. They've never had those conversations before. Then they're crying when they're not getting paid because they went to somebody else, and then they're blaming it on the buyer when it really came down to the fact that they never sat down and had that solid conversation with them, which is now required.
Right. And we've always, on our team, we have always had a process. We meet a client in a neutral territory. We sit down and we say, hey, Danielle, may I share my process with you? Here's what we're going to do to advocate for you. Here's how we're going to help you out of crazy situations. Here's why we're a team and why we don't believe in being just a solo agent that has 152 things they have to do. And so once we demonstrate that, we did show them the property. But then after that, decisions had to be made. Do we want to continue to work together? Do we feel like this is a great fit? I've never met a seller where I said, oh, let me date the seller for a few weeks and then we'll see if we should list this home. No. And I hear a lot of buyer agents say, well, I want to build a relationship with them and I want to see if they want to work with me and I want to work with them. So I'll go out and show them 5 houses. So you'll work for free to earn the business. But why wouldn't you work for free for a seller to earn their business for multiple weeks and then have the seller decide if they want to hire you or not? It never works that way. And so I guess for me, I don't understand why you would do it that way with a buyer when we've always done it where this is our service, this is what we offer, this is our professional fee. And are you ready to move forward with us? It's the same thing, but so many people separate it and make it very different. I don't get why.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, not many agents were actually having that buyer consultation. So if they did, they were not the norm. So then the buyers were kind of like, wait, what's going on? Do I have to commit to you when I have so many others? What I am also seeing is buyers are kind of now, it's like, okay, I have to sign a form saying that I'm going to work with you. Do I even want to sign that form right now?
Right. Right.
So they are maybe going to open houses, which I do think there is going to be a bigger opportunity for people doing open houses. How are let's just say we have a listing agent, the house is listed, but they have a buyer agent from the office that has no agreement, right, with that particular property, sitting open houses for them. And a buyer comes in.
So wait, say that, reframe that again. We have a listing. So
Yep.
one of our
Let's just
listings.
say that one of your agents has a listing.
Yep.
And then they have another agent from your office, a buyer agent, basically.
Right.
It's open houses for that. And a buyer comes in to see that property. Do you have a protocol of, forms that might have to be signed or a conversation?
In our area, they're allowed to come in and they're allowed to look at properties without the forms being signed.
Okay.
So our job in that moment is to demonstrate, obviously our knowledge about the property, but really to give them sort of like jump right into that consultation. What brought you to this house today? Where do you live now? Tell me what your house is like now. Like what, if you could change anything about your house right now, what would you change? Again, it's being really curious. And that's where I think the best salespeople, they're truly curious and empathetic, and they're not coming from commission breath. And I think a lot of times at an open house, and everyone's felt this way, it's like, oh, just, come on in, just walk through the house, just give me feedback. And you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to like make them feel weird. And you can tell the consumer is feeling a little weird and they don't want to talk to you. But I think it's more just like having a conversation like, hey, what brought you down the street? Or which sign did you see? Do you know anybody that lives in this neighborhood? I'm just so curious about you. What do you guys do for a living? And I want to just be human. And I think when you can make a human connection and come from curiosity and ask questions, it's going to diffuse that whole situation to say, Mr. Buyer, most people that walk into open houses don't buy the house that they walk into. So I'm not trying to sell you this today or me. I'm just truly a curious human being. And I would love to just hear more about you. Like, where do you work and what do you do? And just try to befriend them. And then before they leave, really try to give them something of value. So, hey, you're probably house searching on your own, and that's totally fine. If you do want me to set you up on a search with off-market properties, our brokerage, we happen to use a company called Zenless. We all group together here. We have 1,400 EXP agents here in Raleigh. We throw our properties on this website where they're not in MLS. So if you want to see properties off market, I would love to just send you weekly, these cool properties that might match your criteria. Is that something that could be helpful for you? Yeah, cool. I'm not going to bug you. I'm not this pushy salesperson, but I would love to educate and give you more information. And here's my card. You have a friend in real estate. I had an agent that had a really cool card. It was a block of like wood, like a keychain, and it said your key to every door, and it was a QR code, and so they could scan it, and literally anytime they were at a house, if they thought about any questions, they could scan it and get her information. I thought that was really kind of a neat thing, sort of like your key to every house in the community.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just got my EXP card. I have my QR code on the back.
There you go.
Love it. There you go. So three things that were, I think, very important that I just want to point out that maybe some other people didn't pick up on. Number one is that I don't want to get into like the logistics, the laws or anything like that, because to be honest with you, I don't really know. Everyone's still learning. But what I think is important for people to know is every area is different on what the Board of Realtors in your particular area is requiring. And so you really need to make sure, especially right now, that you are going to the meetings at the local board to see exactly what the protocol is. Because from what I'm hearing in my local board is that they have to sign a form when they go into an open house, which is kind of crazy. And they're stressing out about that, right? So just making sure that everybody knows that. Second thing is question-based selling is so incredibly important. And everything that you're talking about is question-based selling. And a lot of times, especially when I, teach classes to agents, I explain to them, they think that they need to go and say, well, this is all about me and da, da, da. No one really cares about you, to be quite honest. People care about themselves. So the more you can ask questions about them, what they're looking for, that's how you're really going to build that rapport with them. And then learning those higher sales techniques like NLP and things like that will help as well. But the question-based selling as a base is really, really important. And then the third thing that I want to point out is that you had made a comment about off-market properties. Okay, so that is one of the things that you do differently, right, than every other agent out there. So if you're working on your buyer presentation, you want to write down every single thing that you do, but then one of those little things that you or your brokerage or your office does differently, and having that off-market list is huge because they can't find that on Zillow or they can't find that on, any of the large brokerage websites. So having access to those properties that might be a great fit for them, is really good. And a lot of times when you're sitting I'm going to kind of segment into listings here. If you're sitting in open house, right, you also, if you're talking to them, it gives you an opportunity to get listings. And I do think that, I was a buyer agent at first, but then a listing agent. And the reason why, there's several reasons why I was doing just listing, but the big thing is that it's a systematic, like I can have a lot of listings at one time in a system for my listings, and it's very easy. And so now with the new buyer broker, agreement, and you have to set up your system so you're not running all over the place, showing properties. What is your system going to be? But on the listing side, let's talk a little bit about that and the conversations, having with the seller. And then also, we can't put the buyer agent commission in MLS, right? Mm-hmm. So how are listing agents getting around that or promoting that? Because I'm going to tell you, doing mortgages, it is so hard, especially I'm in the Florida area. Our flood insurance has like almost doubled. People that were in flood zones are now in flood zones. It's crazy. Our insurance is almost doubled. So it's expensive to buy a house. And a lot of buyers, the affordability issue has already been there. Now, if they have to worry about a buyer agent commission, it's not going to be possible. So let's talk a little bit about listings and what you see with that.
Well, I think that, since the new ruling and everything, I think the education process to the seller is key. And we have had no issues advising a seller to offer compensation because it is in their best interest. When I was through 2008, right, our massive financial crisis, there were properties where, they were sitting for months. And I was offering more than the average. I was offering 1% to 2% more to buyer agents to net my sellers more, meaning they were going to get out of their house faster. They were going to be a clear choice faster. When the buyer agent walks in and subconsciously they know that they're going to make X amount of dollars more, they're not going to point out maybe every little thing that they see. But if you're not offering compensation, all of a sudden that house subconsciously becomes enemy number one. It's human nature. And here's the reason that I feel so passionately about it. Most agents in the US sell 2.5 homes per year. They're hobbyists. They have a quarter of their income in the car. They're selling 2 to 4 homes a year. If that commission means so much to them, as much as I would love to think that everybody is, putting the consumer first, they've got to feed their family. And so that is where I think there's a mix of emotion. Hey, seller, you want to employ these agents, you want to pay them a fair compensation, and you want to get them in the door and not have them have to worry about begging their buyer to pay their compensation. And oh, by the way, do we really want an unrepresented buyer? Do we want a buyer that is stressed out, that has no money, that's going to nickel and dime you? No, because at some point, if the buyer knows they're going to pay $10,000 or $15,000, guess what? That $500,000 price tag, they're not going to pay you $5,000. They're going to pay you $490 or $485 because they have to figure it out. Someone's paying it. Let's just make it easy and let them finance it in the deal.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, really having really getting those conversations down and having them with the seller. So how are your and I don't know if this is an area wide thing or how are your listing agents showing the compensation that they're able to offer?
So we in our market, we're allowed to put it on a sign if we want. We're allowed to put it in a document. So we have a document called the 220 form. The seller would fill that out and say, we're offering 2%, 3%, 4%, whatever the percentage is. This is the compensation. That form goes right to the buyer agent when they request it. We have some buyer agents that never request it. They show the house, and then if the seller, the buyer likes the house, they would call and request that form just so they know how to operate with their compensation that they've negotiated. So for us, it's been pretty easy. I think nationally, what I'm starting to hear now is, that most MLSs, most states are allowing some form of, a document, a website, 2 clicks away.
Right.
They are allowing that to be known because the seller is authorizing that. That's the key. That's the key. The seller's saying, I want to pay. Here's where, I think we were so afraid or worried about it, but the seller is allowed to offer it. We are allowed to let the other buyer broker know. I mean, why would we keep it a secret? It makes no sense. The big thing for us at our brokerage was the decoupling, meaning EXP didn't want to pay, the full percentage to us, and then we pay the other broker. They want the seller to pay the broker and then the seller to pay us. That's really the only change that we've made in our firm. But we do believe in, guiding the seller correctly. And I believe still very strongly that I am marketing this home. If I don't put a sign out, I'm going to lose 20% of the buyer opportunities. If I don't offer compensation, I might lose 90% of the opportunities. That is not in my client's best interest. So I will still stand strong that I believe a seller should offer compensation every single time.
Absolutely, because if not, go flat fee MLS. Do it yourself. And I a lot of times I don't know if this is like the best analogy, but I talk about like, let's just say you want to go on this luxurious vacation, right? Are you going to plan every single detail yourself? Or some people will. Or are you going to hire a travel agent to take care of it all for you because you just don't have the time to do it? It's the same here. People don't want to sell their homes. They don't even know what they're doing. The half don't even want to move, right? But they are moving because they have to. So they want to hire a professional to go and do it for them.
Right. And, it's funny you bring up travel agents. People, I've heard, the trolls online, oh, real estate agents are, they're gone. They're going to be like, first of all, travel agents are still alive and well. The best survived, and they're making 3 times the amount of what they're making, back in the day. So travel agents are dead. The good ones are making, 3-4 times more than they ever did. And I think that's really, that's really cool to see. And yes, we may see a shift of movement of agents, moving out of the industry, but the best ones will survive, not only survive, but thrive. And it'll be one of the biggest opportunities for them to make even better livings than they did before.
100%. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of movement right now, people moving to different brokerages, and people getting out of the business. And that was before this whole thing. I mean, the market's changed. Let's talk about the market, actually, because the market has changed. I mean, I was around in 08. I was around in 07 and 06 and 05 too. And it was a great several years. And then we all saw what happened. And, I in 08 pivoted because I had to. And I would, I was literally door knocking list pendants. I would go to the clerk of court's website, print out all the list pendants, door knock them, and then I would move on to expireds and those as well. And I was, I made a killing, but I was almost, I went from dead broke to making a killing because we lost almost everything that we had in 2008. So in fact, I would love to invite you. I have a webinar that I've been doing, and I have a course that's coming out, Certified Foreclosure Avoidance Specialist, as well as the expired listings. But I'm really, in my webinar, showing the similarities that a lot of people don't see. But after they take this webinar, it's a free webinar, they see the similarities when I show them what's actually going on now in today's market and what was going on in 06 and 07. So I'm just curious where you see the market going over, let's just say, the next 12 to 24 months, and where you you think the biggest opportunities are for real estate agents?
So I think right now I'm seeing the same thing. I'm seeing a shift. We're seeing homes sit on the market longer. We're seeing sellers and agents overprice properties. They're still in la la land for pricing. We're seeing a lot of price reductions, which is going to unfortunately give the power to the buyer. It's going to leave a negative effect on the seller and the property because it's not sitting there. Nobody's excited about a house that's been sitting there for 3 or 4 months. They pull up and say, what's wrong with it? Not, ooh, I have to hurry up and buy it. I'm seeing a lot of agents that are unfortunately not great at their skills of showing the seller why they should adjust these prices. They don't know how to do it because since 2019, 2018, homes were just selling. You listed a house, the market took care of itself. You had the wind at your back. So if you thought you were good, you're probably not as good as you thought that you were. And so I would give probably 60% of your business to the market. The market floated that business. And now what I'm starting to see is agents that were selling 30 homes, they're selling 8 homes this year, and they're joining teams and figuring out, like, what am I doing wrong? So you got to go back to your skills, and you got to go back to, how do I persuade for the good of the deal? How do I get the seller to understand? The seller has to have that epiphany. And if you can't be a clear communicator right now, it is going to be a big challenge. So I don't think that we'll get back to the 2008, but just yesterday, we went on a listing appointment. Buyer or seller bought the house a year ago. They're already upside down. They're already upside down. And so we're going to start to see more and more of that because our prices were inflated by 20 to 25, 30% in our market, where the average year for our growth was 4%. We never went over 4% in a 20, 30-year period. And all of a sudden we saw 15, 20% gains. We're going to be in trouble. And nobody's ever guaranteed a seller that they could buy a house in 2 years, they could make money. Now, what I have seen, and probably you too, Danielle, if you held your home for a decade or more, you probably never lost money. But there is no guarantee if you bought your home 3 years ago, you're going to make money today. You got to hold that puppy for 6 years. So I think we're going to see a lot of people stuck. And the ones that have to move because they have a need, they're going to be talking about foreclosure or bringing money to the table, which I hope they don't have to foreclose. But they are going to bring money to the table because they made an emotional decision during that time. And they didn't stay long enough to recoup and let that house gain appreciation.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely seeing that. And it was funny because back in, what was it, 2021, when people were paying $100,000 over ask, people going in, I'm doing the mortgage, they barely have enough, for the down payment, and they're going in all cash. And I'm like, what agent would allow them to do this? It's crazy.
Right.
But a lot of those that paid so much more than what the house was actually worth, I see them, that are going to struggle. There's people that have lost their jobs, people that are not able to make their payments. As I mentioned, insurance has gone up, and it's sad, and values have come down. And there are a lot of those FHA down payment assistance, 100% finance loans out there. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, there's no more 80-20 loans. Well, there are a lot of loans that are like that. There are a lot of down payment assistance and FHA loans. And if you start to look at what's going on in the commercial real estate market, and all of those loans were supposed to be due last year, that's really what's going to blow up, in my personal opinion, our market. But the good thing is that in 2005, 6, 7, everybody that was in real estate that made a killing, right? Like, it was just an amazing time. And then we saw what happened in 2008, and everyone blamed that on the subprime mortgage market. Oh, it was the subprime market. Yeah. There's always going to be real estate booms and busts. We never know what is going to cause a crash or a recession or, a correction, or we don't know that, right?
Right.
But what we do know is, going back to the 1800s, there has always been real estate booms and busts because the market's cyclical.
That's
so
right.
The great thing is for any agent out there, to not be scared, to look at what the opportunity is, because there's going to be so much opportunity, and it's sitting right there in front of you. I mean, if we go back 7 days in the MLS, we'll see, 280 expired listings. That, for a listing agent that works expired, that's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
So exciting, right? So it sounds bad, but only the ones that really work on their craft, perfect their sales skills. And if they don't know how to do it, get into coaching. If you don't have the money to get into coaching, join a team that offers that, because
Yeah.
that's really going to be the people that survive, and the people that stick with it are going to not only survive, they'll thrive if they work on themselves and they work on their business.
Yeah. And you said it perfectly. It's like either join a team, join a mastermind, because you're right. The markets are cyclical. There's going to be boom and bust markets. And the one thing I want to stress to agents is it's not their fault, because they're guiding during the only thing that they know that's in front of them. These are adults that are making decisions based on their housing. If some person decides to buy a house and 3 years later they decide to move, was there a guarantee to make money, clause anywhere that they signed? No. Most people live in their homes 7, 8, 10 years. And so if you're going to be very transient and you're going to be moving during a time where you don't know what bubble is coming, that's a risk. That is a risk. And so, yes, like you said, join a mastermind group, be around people. If I didn't have my coaching company that I had in 2008, I would be lost. But they taught me how to go after expireds and for sale by owners and learn my sales skills and help guide these consumers. And we have, a group, Danielle, obviously you're a part of it because, we've got that partnership now. Invite those agents that are watching you to our groups. This is the time to slow down, learn something and apply it. I can't stress that enough. Slow down. Even though everybody has ADD, learn something and apply it. And here's one more thing I'll share. If you take out your phone right now, anybody that's listening, and go to your settings and look at your screen time, I bet you that you have 3 to 5 hours a day of screen time that you are not using to work on your health, your fitness, your prospecting. Don't say you don't have time, because you are in a TikTok real world. And you are probably wasting a lot of time on social media when you could be wasting it on or using it to get better.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you back in 2008, I think we were in the same coaching program probably.
Yeah.
And I literally, I was role playing every morning. I was in a role play group, and I didn't want to get out of it. So
Right.
I go to Europe every summer for a little over a month. I mean, every single day I was back in my hotel room or Airbnb or apartment or whatever with my role play group practicing our scripts, right? You have to get really good right now at a couple of things. Number one, you have to be really good at asking the right questions. You have to be really good on price reductions and
Yes.
back faster for, price reduction. Because a lot of times if you're an agent and you go to a house and you meet with a seller and, the seller says, let's list it at 220 and it should be listed at 200. And you're like, no, I really feel however you want to say it. Well, what we can do is we'll list it at 220. And if we don't get any buyers in the first couple of weeks, we'll reduce it down to 200. But the problem is in this market, you're chasing the market down, because when you get the seller to 200, the market could be at 190 or 180. And then what's that seller going to say? Well, you told me it was 200. Well, it was 200 3 weeks ago. It's not 200 anymore, right? So you have to be really strong on your pricing, getting the sellers to understand the market and list it at a price that is going to cause that home to sell. Because what happens is a lot of times when we're getting no showings, no offers, no nothing, and we know it's the market, but we start to think it's us, right? And what are we doing wrong? So you made a great, comment there that it's not you. It has nothing to do with you. It does have something to do with you if you take an overpriced listing, right?
Exactly. Well, that example I gave you, that listing that's going to be a short sale, they called somebody that they knew that sold them the house, and that they needed to get 520 out of the house to break even. Our comps, we came in at 460. Now, think about that. You can either tell the truth. We brought 20 comps. The one agent brought 2 comps. The 2 comps that would give the seller confidence, give the seller the right feeling, give the seller the ability to sign on the paper and feel good. But what will it really do for the seller? it's going to hurt them eventually. They're giving them hope, right? So I'm going to take this listing and then I'm going to beat you up on the price week after week after week into submission. That makes no sense. So we said, hey, we would rather tell you the truth now and not get the listing than beat you up on the price and have this listing sit there for 6 months. And then you're mad at us. Just be mad at us now for telling the truth. And guess what? That seller said, you're right. We want to work with you guys because this is going to be painful, but we'd rather move forward, rip the Band-Aid off and tell the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all great information.
I know. I could talk about it for days.
I know. Well, thank you so much for being on. This was awesome. I really appreciate it. Tina Call is amazing. So I'm so excited to be part of your group now. And I'm excited to bring a lot of other awesome agents in under us so we can help them with everything real estate, because when we're helping them, we're really helping the sellers and the buyers. And that's really helping our real estate market, because we need to see some of these properties move. And it's funny because a lot of, I always explain this to real estate agents. A lot of times, if a seller or buyer is stuck, the biggest problem is they don't know what to do and they don't want to make a decision because they're scared to make the wrong one.
Right.
So if you can get very good at helping that seller identify, or that buyer, what it is, like what you had said in the beginning, what it is they're looking for, what is their problem that they're trying to fix, and how you can help them fix that, that's really where all of the strong agents are going to be. And like I said, they're going to thrive, not just survive. So I'm super excited for all of the agents that are out there that are going to stick with it in hard times, because their time is going to come and it's going to be so exciting and awesome for them. So
yeah, I am so excited to partner with you and anybody listening. I mean, if you want to get on a call with Danielle and I, we can strategize and help you sort of craft that business blueprint. We got into the business same time, 2001. So, and we've been through the gamut. So yeah, definitely this is not a time to do it alone. And the biggest thing that happened to me was joining a mastermind group in 2008, just like you. Yeah, I'm excited for the adventure that we're embarking on. Yeah.
It'll be a wild ride, but it's fun and it's going to be worth it. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to have fun and help people and live an awesome life. So
exactly right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina.